Hey there, here's a quick note before we begin. You can support the podcast by downloading, sharing, or checking with my favorite hiking gear at justhike.com. Let's hit the trail. Hi, Kerry. I'm so excited to have you on the Just Hyke podcast. Our mission is to inspire and motivate and support women, especially those over the age of 40 who want to build strength, confidence, and adventure through hiking. Kerry is a backpacker, a trail maintainer, and on the Awachita. Am I pronouncing that right? Awachita?
Yep. Yep.
Awachita
Washita
Trail.
Trail.
Nice. And she is a YouTube channel called JetGirl Hikes. So, Kerry, I know that you recently completed the Awachita Trail. You did a through hike. Tell me about that.
All right. So that was a pretty cool hike. I would have never in my life thought that I would hike that far because I'm not some big badass hiker at all. I'm one of those weekend warriors. So, and I ended up learning about the Washita Trail and I had just started. It's actually a funny story. Let me back up a little bit. So, when my husband and I were up in Missouri, my husband decided to take the scenic route coming back. And I hadn't backpacked in years. I started backpacking as a kid in the 80s. And then I kind of took a hiatus and I hadn't been around it for a while. Then I relocated to Texas and we were on that scenic drive and we drove across where it said hiker crossing. And I looked at my husband and I'm like, do you think there's backpacking around here? And yeah, I saw his eyes roll. He's like, oh Lord, here we go. so, so yeah, and it turned out later on, I realized that that spot where we crossed was the Washita Trail. And at that time, I had no idea how much that trail was going to end up being a part of my life. So it was pretty cool. And then once I learned about it, and I was thinking like, wow, because you always think of a through hike as like the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail, the CDT, stuff like that, where you're, people who have a job and have to work and take vacation time, you can't do that kind of a trail. And I didn't realize there were shorter trails. So,
Nice. Yeah, good.
yeah. So once I learned about it, I got to thinking, like, wouldn't that be neat to just live on the trail for that long? And then I hadn't really considered just what 223 miles feels like. So,
Gotcha. So is that the length of the Awachita Trail? Give me a little bit of statistics, I guess, about the trail.
okay. So the trail is 223 miles long. It starts at Talamina State Park in Oklahoma and it runs all the way to Pinnacle Mountain State Park in Little Rock, Arkansas. So it's very much along ridgeline. There are 10 sections to it. And one of the really cool things about the Washita Trail is we have a shelter system. So you can hike 10 to 12 miles a day and get to a shelter each night. And the shelters are the three-sided styles similar to what you would find on the Appalachian Trail. In fact, that's what they were designed after.
Nice. Now, do they have water at each of these shelters, or do you have to find your water along the way?
You have to find your water along the way. There are 4 shelters that are near water, but the rest of them you have to, and it's on Far Out, which is a hiking app I'm thinking a lot of your viewers have probably heard of.
Far out?
Interactive map.
Okay.
So you can look on there, it'll show you where all the water sources are at mile point, and on there it's also showing you where you are, and it'll tell you how far to that water source. So you can use that to kind of gauge where you need to get your last water at. And under each one of those, there's comments where people will comment and say, oh, it's dry. And it'll show the date they commented. So you may say, well, yeah, someone wrote that back in the summer. And then you can also leave comments when you get there. Oh, no, there's plenty of water. You can leave a comment for people behind you saying, oh, yeah, there's plenty of water. So it's really cool.
That sounds really interesting. My husband and I, and a group of ladies, we hiked part of the Awachita Trail. I went to Queen Wilhelmina State Park. We parked there, and then we started hiking straight from Queen Wilhelmina. And then when we got to our end point, we caught a shuttle ride back. And it was really easy to get a shuttle. We just reached out online to a couple of different people. And one lady, she was able to shuttle us back to our car, which was so convenient and easy. It was Letitia, a very nice lady. I really enjoyed that section of the trail. Now I've heard, and you let me know, that the beginning over on the Oklahoma side is very rocky. Is that true?
It is.
Okay.
And when we say rocky, we mean rocky.
Yeah.
So there's it's basically like boulders, and you'll see a tree on the other side of this boulder field where you can see a blaze on it, and that trail is blazed in blue. And you have to just kind of pick your way through those boulders to get to where you're going. And sometimes you'll get there, like when we started our through hike, and spoiler alert, I actually attempted that trail twice before finally on my third time getting it. So like I said, I'm not
Wow.
some big badass hiker. So I learned a lot along the way that eventually helped me make it a successful through hike. But on that one where we went through the really rocky area, it was really foggy, and we
Oh,
had a hard time seeing the blaze on the other side of the boulder fields. So far out came in really helpful because we were able to open up the app, which you can use without cell service, and see where we were and see where the trail is and know which way to walk to go find the trail. So
wow. That sounds a little scary.
it wasn't as part of an adventure.
It is part of the
Good
adventure
stories
for
to
sure.
tell.
So what do you think stopped you from doing the through hike the first 2 times you attempted it?
Okay, so the first time I had no idea what to expect. And I didn't what really surprised me was the mental factor of it. Because you tell yourself, "Oh, how hard can it be? You just keep walking," and I love backpacking, but there's this whole mental side of it that I was really not expecting, and also the shoes I had weren't quite right. I had hiked in them quite a bit, but for some reason, once I started that through hike with the higher mileage, each day it was not going well, and it ended up so my feet were in pain, and then also that mental side of it, I was just getting really homesick. So I made it 140 miles, and then I ended up I was miserable. So I got off trail and then came back later on and finished the last 84 miles of it. But each time I had one of those failures, I learned. So, and failing is just learning with frustration.
Ah,
So
I love that. That's so good.
yeah, so and there was a lot of frustration, but each time, like I said, I learned and I was able to tweak what I was doing. And the next time is when my ankle kept collapsing, and it turned out I had torn a ligament off the bone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that'll be painful.
yeah, actually it wasn't painful at all. They said usually when you tear the ligament itself, that's painful, but when it just comes off the bone, it's really not that painful. So but when I looked
Oh,
at it, it was
good.
all black and blue, and I think I made it 34 miles.
Wow. So
So
how long that's intense. How long did it take you to do the through hike this last time?
this last time it took 16 days, and we took 2 Neros, which is a almost 0 day, just a very short day. And one of those was at Queen Wilhelmina State Park at the lodge.
Yep,
And
nice.
then we also had 1 0 day, which means it's a day that we did not hike any mileage. It was a total day off to recuperate. So I don't know if you saw earlier this past year or earlier this year, I completed the Ozark Highlands Trail as a through hike as well.
Oh,
And I did not have a 0 day or a Nero day. I hiked, let's see, was it 9 days straight?
good for you. And about how many miles per day?
I ranged between 16 and 20 miles each day.
That's a
And
lot.
that had a lot to do with the terrain.
Terrain makes a big deal. How heavy is your pack typically?
Base weight.
Yeah,
So the base weight being the weight without any consumables is right around 19 pounds.
19 pounds. And then you would have to add your food and then add your water.
Yep, and fuel
Got
for my stove.
How much would you be starting off with on your first day, let's say?
Okay, so are we assuming full load of water, which
Yeah,
would be 3 liters?
yeah.
Okay, that would be probably about 27 pounds.
Okay.
But with water, you're drinking it throughout the day. And also, there was only one point on the Washita Trail where I carried 3 liters, and it wasn't very far. And there was on the Ozark Highlands Trail, which has water everywhere. I never carried more than 1.5 liters.
Nice. And how much like water weighs 2 pounds per how do you do
Liter.
the math on that?
Yes, it's about 2.1 pounds per liter.
Per liter, right. So if you're carrying 3 liters of water, you're looking at 6.3 pounds.
Yep.
And that's a lot. That adds a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you set your pack down, you get your water, you pick your pack back up, and you're like, "Oh god, this is gonna be rough."
So what do you do for training? How do you train for something like that? What do you like to
Alright,
do?
so on the failed through hike, my training was I decided to join a CrossFit gym, and that's a lot of very explosive kind of stuff, not
Mhm.
endurance kind of stuff, so that didn't work at all. What did work is just lots of walking every day, and then also lots of backpacking trips. On
So, yeah, on the
Yeah,
weekends, getting your back and your shoulders ready, getting your hips ready, carrying
yeah,
that load, doing that
exactly.
progressive overload type
Yes,
workout
exactly.
for
And
sure.
then because the weight vest is cool for that load bearing resistance, but all the weights hanging on your shoulders is not sitting on your hips the way a backpack would. We backpack with.
Yes.
So that's why I put in, and also backpacking is just fun. So that's a really cool way to go get outside and do some exercise and get ready for this hike. And also just to really know your gear, be a point where you can really put up your camp fast and you can take down your camp fast. Because on a weekend backpacking trip, you have time to just piddle around. But on a through hike, it's different because when you're tired, you just want to get camp up, you just want to eat and go to sleep. So it's a whole different animal. And I think that's another thing that causes a lot of the mental stuff in the beginning was that I kept looking at it like, oh, it's gonna be a fun backpacking trip. And it's not, it's a completely different animal. So on my first attempt, I had called my husband in tears. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And this is so hard. And he said, well, and it's just something that has stuck with me ever since he said it throughout every other through hike attempt and through hike was he said, well, challenges are meant to be hard. That's why it's a challenge. And that's when it kind of clicked. I'm like, oh, I'm trying to look at this like I'm supposed to be out here having fun, not I'm out here doing a challenge. So once I flipped my mindset, it really changed things a lot.
I love that so much. I think we thrive on challenges. When I went and I did Kilimanjaro, and it is that challenge, and it's fun to go, and it's fun to plan, and it's fun to pack. But when you get into that daily grind, and it's like, oh, my ankle hurts. Oh, it's this. And it's like, okay, you got to kind of flip that mindset and just say, okay, the goal is there later, right? Right now,
Mhm.
I just have to get through the grind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You said that perfectly.
Get through the grind.
Yes.
So what did you eat? What kind of food do you like to eat? I know we have our issues with nutrition and all of that,
Yes.
and there's all sorts of special diets out there. And, some people
Mhm.
follow diets with whatever name they want to call it. But what do you like to eat when you're on the trail?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. So, especially on a through hike, when you're hiking that higher mileage, man, it's a struggle.
Mhm.
It really is. I lose my appetite.
I've heard that of a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
Like I
don't
would
want to eat, but
You have to, yeah. And then I would get to camp and I get my stuff set up and I just sit there in my hammock and just be like, I don't want to eat. And then I would have like this, you have a dehydrated meal. And once you rehydrate it, you have to eat it all. And I'd look at it, not rehydrated yet. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to eat all that. And I don't want to have to carry it. So I just wouldn't eat. I'm like, well, I have some snacks left over from the day, and I would just eat that. So I was probably taking in maybe 900 calories a day with all that walking.
right.
So, and then also I had things that were really nutritious and packed with protein and, good carbs and stuff like that. And I didn't want any of it. I didn't want it and I didn't eat it. So on this last through hike this year, the Ozark Highlands Trail, I brought things I like to eat. So I got to camp and I'd say like, okay, I'm not hungry, but I look at what I have and I also packed different size portions.
Smart.
So if I was like, I don't want to eat all this, 'cause I remember that was a big thing where I'm like, I'm looking at all this food. I'm like, I'm not going to eat all that. So if I had that feeling, I would say, okay, I'm just going to take one of these smaller portion ones. And one of them was like the Peak Refuel Peach Cobbler. Have you had
Okay.
that one yet?
No, no, not
Oh,
yet.
it's good.
I have a couple of peak ones in my bag right over there. Nice.
And they have a lot of protein in them. So it's like hidden protein. It's not dry chicken.
Right. Oh, that's
So
so good. Yeah.
yeah, and the peach cobbler one is really good, and it's just a small portion because
Right.
it's meant to be enjoyed as a dessert, and it's got, like, I think 12 grams of protein in it.
Nice. Yeah.
So and I would sit there, I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't feel like eating," but, I mean, you know how it is. You'd be like, "Oh, I'm not hungry at all. Oh, dessert? Hey." So
That's a
so
smart trick. I like it.
and then I figured out that that worked out really well. Also, I ate a lot of candy. So a buddy of mine, Nick Fowler, he's got it fastest known time on the
Okay.
PCT is self-supported. And right now he is on day 2 of his fully supported Pacific Crest
Oh, that's exciting.
FKT attempt, which is fastest known time attempt. So he had told me a big issue is what's happening with that is that during the day when you're hiking and you're demanding so much from your body, you have all your endorphins and adrenaline and all this different like feel good juices running through you. And then when you get to camp and that's been running through you all day, you get to camp and then you stop and all that stuff tanks. And basically your body's going into a withdrawal because you've taken all the feel good juices away all of a sudden. And one of the side effects of that is the loss of appetite. I figured out if I get to camp and I eat some sugar, it seemed to bring that back up. And then as soon as that, like about 5-10 minutes after eating that sugar or that candy, I would get an appetite.
As a society, I know we all overeat on sugar. But if you've been
Yes.
hiking all day and you're burning like 2,000, 3,000 calories throughout the day, you need some sugar for that quick energy. And I love that it stimulates your appetite so that you
Yeah.
do feel like eating something. I know my go-to is peanut butter and jelly, and I'll pack either the powdered peanut butter and stir it up
Mhm.
or the little packs where you can just tear it off and squeeze it in. Tends to make me get my calories and my sugar and my oils that my body needs to be able to keep
Yeah.
on going. Yeah, you have to find the things that really work for you and really resonate for you because, not eating that causes issues.
Exactly. And then also just not nitpicking the nutrition because the calories are more important at this point. And so like there's something, and maybe you know more about this. That powdered peanut butter,
Uh-huh.
something about the way it's processed is a lot of the fats that were in it, those good fats are broken down to where they're not usable anymore.
Right. Or it's
But
taken out, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah, that's
it's just not
remember.
there.
I just remember seeing something about that, and I
Yeah.
was thinking, and people are like, "Oh, well, you could put some olive oil and mix it in
You
with peanut butter." Seriously, who's gonna eat that? So,
I'll have to
yeah. So
experiment.
but that's the thing is like, yeah, nutritionally, they took the fats out. You really need those fats. But
Yeah.
is it something you're going to eat? Yeah, cool. Take it, eat it. So,
Good point. I love that. So do you have any big hikes planned for the future? What do you got going on?
so next year we are going to, and I think you're going to love this one. We're doing the Lone Star Trail.
Oh, nice. Yay, coming to my home trail. I love
Yes,
it.
I
When are
knew
you
you were going to
planning?
love that
Well,
one.
we don't have to announce it to everybody. We can talk about the, dates privately. That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, for sure.
Very
So,
fun.
it was actually supposed to be this year, the beginning of this year, then all the floods wiped out the bridges and the boardwalks and everything. So we
Cool.
had to reschedule. So we decided, and it was kind of funny because the Ozark Highlands Trail was never meant to be a through hike. It was, let's just do the OHT for a week and see how far we get. And then when I realized like the daily mileage that where we were probably going to end up ending was I'm like, "Well, there's only 55 miles left, and that's, like, how much we would do in a weekend." So I was like, "We may as well keep going," but it turned out no one else could keep going. I was the only one who could get the amount of time off to do it. So
Mm.
I ended up finishing it solo. My hiking bud, Jessica, she hiked it with me for the first 85 miles. And then which helps, like, we talked about, like, the homesickness and the loneliness that it like that helped so much to have someone with me. And like my when I finally got the Washita Trail through hike completed, my trail sister Melissa was with me. So I had someone with me and there was that fun. We didn't necessarily hike side by side every day. Sometimes we just kind of split up a little bit and met at camp, but just to have someone along with that journey just means so much and it makes such a difference.
It gives you a
So
little bit of a support system, doesn't it? Yeah.
so
How do
now
you
we're
feel?
planning to come back to the I heard that they're doing better on getting the trail reopened.
Yeah, the
Is that right?
trail is, I believe it's 100% open, but I did see something the other day that there was a small section that was closed. The one big thing about the Lone Star hiking trail is you have to plan for the San Jacinto River. There's still no bridge going across the river. So you either have to strip down to your bathing suit and wade across it, or if there's a fallen log downstream, you might be able to cross the fallen log. I've seen some people put their packs in a garbage bag and float it across, and they'll walk across. Just be careful crossing the river, have some water shoes on, something to protect your feet, because you never know what's
Okay.
underneath that water.
I think that after a really bad storm, it's just too dangerous to cross, correct?
Could be. Oh, yeah. If
Okay.
it's a really like intense rain, it could be very swollen and very, yeah. It's
Okay.
not a raging river, but it still has a good current going with it.
Is it fast moving?
But normally it's at the spot where the trail crosses, normally maybe hip or knee deep. Yeah. So certainly doable when it's that depth.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Just be careful. Be
Yeah,
careful.
so we're
Yeah.
looking forward to it. It's kind of funny. I got one of my videos on, I had got a comment on it and someone said, hey, I was watching your video. I'm here in the Fort Worth area doing some for on business. And so I was sitting at the hotel looking to see what kind of hiking there was around there. And I found your YouTube channel and I was watching it. And he said, the next day I come into the hangar to check on how it's going with my airplane. And I see you walking through the hangar. So I was like, hey, if you're back there and you see me again, come say hi. So we ended up talking and he lives down there near you.
Oh,
And then
nice.
he's like, hey, do you have any plans to do the Lone Star Trail? And I was like, said, yeah, we have. That's definitely been on our radar. He said, well, when you do, let me know. My wife and I will be your support. We'll drop water caches for you. We'll meet
Oh,
you on
so
the trail with
awesome.
Trail Magic, whatever support you need. He said, I live right near the trail.
Very awesome. So tell me what gear is your favorite gear? I know I watched one of your videos the other day and it was about you unpacked your backpack
Hmm.
and you analyzed, what you used and then what you didn't use. And I
Yeah.
love that concept. And
Yeah,
so
it's a great thing to do. And with because I lead a lot of beginner groups. My mom used to teach beginner backpacking when I was
really,
a kid. So
oh,
I've
so
kind of
cool.
carried that forward and I do beginner groups as well, similar to how you do yours. And also thank you for doing that. I love that you do that. There's not a whole lot of people out there who do. But that's one of the exercises I have them do when they get home is make those two piles and see what they used and what they didn't. Because when you first start backpacking, you don't know what to take. You don't know what to expect. So you start to try and plan for everything. And the worst ones are come from car camping because they're
Mhm.
trying to pack all those cool little gadgets and stuff, and you got to learn to do without them. So once you see that it's possible, like, wow, I'm gonna need this and I'm gonna need this. But once you've done it and you saw you actually didn't need all that stuff, it's actually very simplified out on the trail to see those.
I absolutely agree. It's very, very simple. Really, all you need is your toothbrush, something to shelter yourself, and some food and water.
That's
Yes,
all you need. You can eat
that's the
right out of
main.
the bag.
Have you
So
ever heard the phrase, we pack our fears?
yes,
What do you think about that?
I think it is 100% true. My fear is being cold.
Okay.
I
And
pack
so
way
what?
too much insulation. I'll have 3 jackets with me. They're like, but it's summer.
Yeah, but what if?
Yeah, but what if a blizzard rolls in
Right?
Arkansas in
It,
May? You
it
never know.
I
So,
agree.
but I
Uh,
was saying that my favorite piece of gear that made so much of a difference is my shoes. I wear the Brooks Cascadia. They're really meshy, so I can walk straight through water in them. And then as you walk the water, you can just see the water just pumping out of them. And just with the process of your feet moving, eventually dries everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
So,
the Brooks Cascadia, is that what you said?
yep.
I'll look at those
Yeah.
ones. I have the Hoka trail runners, the
Oh,
speed
those,
goats. Yeah, I really like the speed goats, but I don't think they're mesh. I don't think they would dry as quickly as what it sounds like the Brooks Cascadia would. So I'm gonna have to have a look.
I think they have about the same amount of mesh from the ones
Do
that I've
they?
seen.
Okay.
Yeah, because mostly it's the toe area where you want it. Because as you walk, all the water is going to be running down towards the toe.
Right.
So,
Very
but yeah,
cool.
I really love the Brooks Cascadias. Those were a game changer for me. And then also, like we talked about, lightweight gear. So we
Mm-hmm.
talked about pack weight, that just having my gear light. And then also through the process of doing the beginner groups, I started having more and more beginners show up with hammocks. The first one
Oh,
showed
yes.
up and had a problem. I was like, oh, I hope she doesn't have a problem with suspension or anything. If she has a problem, I don't know how to help. I don't know the first thing about hammocking. So that's why I was like, I better start learning about this in case beginners bring a hammock. Once I started learning about it, I'm like, ooh. So then I bought my first hammock and I was like, ooh, this is really nice. So that was also my favorite piece of gear on the through hikes because I get such good sleep, so much better than sleeping on the ground.
I've heard that about hammocks, and I've only slept in a hammock one time, and I did get a really great sleep on that one time that I did use a hammock. My question is, do you think a hammock, like with all the ties and everything, is it the same weight or do you think it's heavier than a tent?
If you're carrying like a kind of a backpacking tent you would get at REI, you might actually get away with it being lighter.
Gotcha.
But
How
my
heavy is your
tenting, I'm sorry, my tenting is a Z-Pax duplex.
Okay,
So that
gotcha.
thing weighs 19 ounces.
And then what about your hammock sleep system?
The whole hammock sleep system is right at about 3 pounds,
Yeah.
but that includes, so like you have to also consider with the tent, there's a lot of other things like your pillow and your sleeping pad and stuff like that you're not going to be carrying. So I think I'm right about even now with the new hammock I just bought.
I
So
love it.
I haven't even got to use it yet.
Oh,
Still
really?
sleeping in the backyard in it, but
That's so
but
cool.
yeah,
So what is the new hammock that you got?
the new hammock is the Dutchware Hellbender.
Dutchware Hellbender.
Yeah, isn't that a great
Got it.
name?
Yeah, that's
But
cool.
so pretty much what it is, because you have to have the hammock and then you have to have the underquilt that you hang underneath it
Yes.
with more suspension, so that way it keeps your butt warm.
Yes.
No one wants a cold butt.
No.
So I what they did is they actually sewed an underquilt to the bottom of the hammock, and it's only in the areas where you need it.
Oh,
So
so
you're
that
not
reduces
carrying all
weight.
the, yeah, and if you check on my YouTube channel, I did
Uh-huh.
a video about it.
Okay.
So it's called Unboxing the Hellbender. And it's brand new. They just released it, I think, 3 weeks ago.
Very cool. I love
Yeah,
that
so
so
that
much.
yeah, that thing is so comfortable, and that's what's really shaved a lot of weight off of my hammocking setup.
What advice would you give someone who is going to attempt their very first through hike?
Do it. Just do
Yeah.
it. Go. Basically, even if you don't finish it, that's cool. Still experience it, learn from it, and then once you do and you start to learn, you say, "Oh, I'm gonna wanna do this. I'm gonna wanna do that." And I would say to get ready for it, walk a lot, walk loaded like we talked about with a vest or a backpack.
Absolutely.
Do a lot of weekend backpacking trips.
Mhm.
Really get a lot of practice with that gear and get your gear dialed in to where you're carrying only what you need. Because the lighter your pack is, the better chance you have of success on that through hike. And also, because us older, we're getting older and our knees aren't so good anymore. Work, mobility work,
Stretching,
stretching, like,
flexibility.
yep.
Yes.
So every day
Mhm.
do hip stretches because our hips are doing a lot when we're backpacking.
Oh, yeah, you got all that load and it's on your hips and you're moving. I'm also a stretch
Mhm.
and flexibility coach, and so I do a lot of hip mobility work with my ladies, and yeah,
Okay.
that hip work is so important. definitely. And it's easy. It's simple to do. We just have to do it.
So I think I'm going to want to get together with you and go over some stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm planning to do so every morning when I was in my tent, I would do stretches.
Yes.
I would especially like pigeon pose and stuff like
Yes.
that to really for
Hmm.
the hip flexors. You can't do that in a hammock. So so I've kind of put together some stuff that works for when you're in a hammock and when you're
Oh,
dealing
that's
with the
so
hammock, you don't have
cool.
a place to lay down. So I want to make a video about it, but I'm not a very bendy person. And I don't know a whole lot about like a lot of the really cool mobility stuff that out there and all the other options. So I think I'd like to get together with you on figuring that out, some stretches to do if you'd be happy to help me with that.
Oh, I would love to help you with that. And that would be a very fun video to do together. I think we could figure
Yeah.
that out. The one thing I thought about while you were talking is, even if you had a piece of Tyvek or something on the ground, so even
Mhm.
though if you're not in the hammock, because I think that reminds me of aerial yoga, and that's we probably could figure that out, but we don't want people getting injured on the trail doing their through hike, trying to do aerial yoga with their hammock. Yeah.
Imagine
Yes.
telling that story how you broke your leg.
Exactly. I love that. So just do it. That's your advice for somebody else. Just
Yeah,
do it.
do it and experience it.
Very fun. I love that. Is there anything else you want to add for today before I get into a fun little game that I want to play?
Okay. So like one of the things we had was about what I learned about myself while I was out there. And because you see people like they talk about they start the AT or the PCT, and by the time they finish, they've learned so much about themselves. Even on the shorter through hikes, that happens. And you don't have to do some 6 month long hike to start to learn those things about yourself. I definitely get my energy from being around other people. I'm not one of those people that gets my energy through solitude at all. And just to accept that. And then the biggest thing was letting go.
The biggest thing that you learned was
Letting go.
letting go.
So, because I'm just through work and everything, because I'm the head mechanic for my crew at work. So I'm constantly like in like the planning and like you have a plan, I got to work through that plan and this is how we're going to do it. And that doesn't work on the trail because it seems like, yeah, you just walk. That's all you do. But things happen. So on the Ozark Highlands Trail, my friend and I managed to walk 2 miles past our food cache
Oh,
before we realized we had passed it, our turnoff for it, and then we had to turn around and hike 2 miles back up the hill, and
oh
that
no.
yeah, and that kind of stuff just happens, so it set us behind for the day, but if you've got this really rigid plan, like I tend to do in my head, have this very rigid plan, and there's no flexibility to it, then it just throws you mentally for this like loop. So I finally learned that just make a simple plan. Okay, today I'm going to put one foot in front of the other and I'm going to aim to get to point B. And then that way, if something happens and you don't get to point B, okay, I didn't get to point B. We'll get to point B tomorrow. You know, tomorrow we'll work on it again. And tomorrow, maybe you get to point B. Maybe you have to hike 2 miles back for your food. It's just as long as you keep it fluid, then it doesn't seem so upsetting. You just go, oh, well, okay, that happened, whatever. Within reason, because we do have to get back to work and stuff like that.
We have shuttles to catch or whatever it is, or you have to make it to that food cache. Otherwise, you're going to be, or that water cache.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be out of water. So there are some important deadlines to meet, but I love the flexibility and leaving that open. It makes me think of obstacles in the road, right? A
Mhm.
tree falls over. Well, what are we going to do? We have to learn to navigate what's going
Yeah.
on. And that relates to life, right? Where's
Mhm.
always roadblocks are
Absolutely.
showing up and we have to learn to navigate, but we still have to get back on track and back on trail. And like you said, you'll catch up and you'll get to your point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that letting go and being a little more relaxed with plans is definitely carried through just off the trail and into life and just how I do things at work, how I do things around the house, how I do things with travels, just in my own, you know, brain way of doing things. I think it's just because I'm so scatterbrained sometimes. I feel like I got to have this very rigid plan, but to just learn, okay, there's always a way around it. And just to have things happen out there on the trail and realize I'm like, I was out in the middle of the wilderness and things didn't go as planned. And guess what? It was okay.
It was okay. That's right.
So
We
that was
figured it
something
out.
personally that I took off the trail.
Nice. I love that so much. All right, you ready for a fun little game? This is a
Yes, let's do
surprise.
it.
I haven't given you any warning about this. All right, I'm going to give you a list of 5 different words, and we're just going to go through them one at a time. And I just want you to say either the first word or phrase that comes to your mind. Okay? All right,
Okay.
the very first word is summit.
Summit. Excitement.
Nice. Okay. How about blisters?
Hell. Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that's leukotape.
leukotape. There you go. Very good. Snack.
Nerds.
Nerds. You like nerds? Very
The
cool.
nerds gummies.
Oh, sounds good. I love gummies. Those are my favorites. How about bear?
Picture.
Oh, really? Like a picture
Yeah.
of a bear? Okay. Have you ever had a bear?
No, like I want to
Bear?
take a picture of it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
First thing I'd be
Okay.
doing is scrambling from my phone. I want to get a picture of this. There's a bear.
And how about freedom?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Wow. All I can keep coming up is the word freedom. Relaxation.
Relaxation. Do you find you can be relaxed on the trail even though you're through hiking?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
very much so.
Just get into the groove.
Yep. And it's funny, I've got a friend who's when I first started talking to her, we were talking about walking and I said, yeah, I was like, yeah, I do a lot of hiking. She's like, oh, I don't do the outdoors. I don't like being outdoors. And then so she's started walking, just going to the park to walk. And she's finding out, she said she can't believe it. She said, if she walks on the treadmill, an hour or like half hour sounds like forever. And when she goes and walks at the park, she said she'll look out, all of a sudden it's almost been an hour and it just
Nice.
flew by.
Mm,
And I'm sure you know too that walking does something to our brains
absolutely. Yes.
and walking outdoors does even more. So
Yes, it
something about
does.
being outdoor and just like the effect on our brains, like they've looked at people who grew up as kids in a rural area, they have a larger hippocampus than kids who grew up in the city.
I love
And
that.
then the hippocampus is our memory and how we sort through stress situations and everything else. And they did a study in Germany. They had a group of people and they divided in half. Half went for MRI, then one half went and did a walk in nature for an hour, and the other half went and did a walk in the noisy city for an hour. They found, the amygdala is our fight or flight, right?
Mhm.
So people who have like PTSD, that fight or flight is like super stimulated. And that's what's going on. So when they looked at these people after they did their walk and they did the MRI afterwards, they found that the amygdala was super relaxed on the people who came back from nature walk and was actually more active for the people who came back from the city walk. So there's just so much happening. And that's just little things. There's just so much that's happening in our brains as we walk. And it's really cool to watch her starting to walk more. And she's like, I actually enjoy walking outside more. And then I'll get little messages from her. She'll say, this was so cool. I didn't realize when you walk past trees, it feels cooler, almost air conditioned, and the air smells fresher. And I was like, yeah,
I
yeah.
love that so
She's like, that's
much.
so cool. So it's really cool to watch her starting as someone who's, I don't like being outside. And she's sending me pictures of bunny rabbits and cool stuff she sees. And
That's
so just watching
exciting.
her come right, I love it. It's so cool to watch her journey becoming, you know, more active in the or becoming finding the outdoors enjoyable.
Absolutely. And it's probably, I can only suspect it's reducing her stress and anxiety levels if she suffered from
Yeah.
anything like that. There are many benefits of getting out in nature, forest bathing, that's a term that's out there. We're not rubbing pine cones all over ourselves, but we're immersing ourselves in nature and letting the phytocyanides of the forest and the oils that the trees emit envelop us. And there's Tons of studies on it. Phytocyanides are the oils that the trees emit, and then they envelop us through our cells, through our skin, through our breathing, and that has stress relieving properties for us.
Really?
Yeah, I
That's
know.
cool. I
It's
didn't know that.
very cool. Very cool. I love getting out in nature and just the immense benefits of it. And you said it
Yeah.
perfectly with your story about your friend and the study in Germany. All right, Kerry, are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
Yes, I've been waiting for the rapid fire questions.
Awesome. I'm so glad you asked about them. Do you have a trail name and what is it?
My trail name is
Yes.
Mary Poopins.
Mary Poopins. How did that come
Mm,
about?
So I have a tendency because I am a mechanic. I tend to have a lot of things in my pack that people need when something goes wrong, like an extra gasket for a water filter, or even like plumber's tape for threads of a water filter. And whenever people need something, I pull it out of my pack and they gave me Mary Poppins. I hated Mary Poppins. So eventually, with my very inappropriate humor around poop and conversations about poop, eventually got renamed Mary Poopins. So, and I like that one much better. It's much more fitting.
What is one item in your pack that is totally unnecessary but brings you joy?
This is Pack Rat.
Ah, he's so
So,
cute.
for those on audio listening, I am showing a little itty bitty stuffed rat,
And
little
he's
stuffed
not itty
animal.
bitty though. He's actually pretty big.
So, this is Pack Rat. And when I'm on trail and lonely, I have my little buddy Pack Rat with me, and he rides on
Oh,
the outside of my pack. He goes everywhere I go.
that's so cute. I love him. I love him. What is your most unforgettable moment on the trail?
Well, there was one time when I accidentally stepped in my own poop,
Oh no.
but we're not going to talk about that one. Okay, so there was one time when it I was on the board stand loop, which is a great trail, by the way. It picks up part of the Washita Trail. And in the middle of the night, we were in this meadow area that was surrounded by trees on the outskirts of it. And just in those trees, like probably maybe 25 feet from us, a coyote howled. A
Oh,
coyote
wow.
howled. And he was the Marco howl. So after he howled, all the polo howls
Oh,
all around us. You could hear them from far away, you could hear them from really close, and they're all around us. And even the sound of them, you could make out the shape of the valley that we were camping in. It was the most amazing thing I've ever heard. So we got to experience it like 3 times. And then I got to thinking, oh man, I was leading a beginner trip at the time. I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't scare the beginners. Luckily, the one that probably might have been a little apprehensive about it had earplugs in and she never heard it. So
were you
no,
scared at all?
no,
No,
no.
no.
That coyote eventually, intentionally came into our campsite and sniffed around my tent. Then he went and sniffed around another tent. He spent a lot of time sniffing around where our campfire was, where we had been eating dinner and everything.
Yep.
And then he went on his way. That was
Good.
probably the coolest thing I've ever heard. And I don't know that I'll ever get a chance to hear that again.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Kerry. I appreciate your time. And make sure you guys look up JetGirl Hikes on YouTube, right?
Yep. Jet Girl is one word.
JetGirl is one word. Love it.
Yeah. Because if you make it 2 words, you're going to come up with a bunch of flight attendants and stuff. Right, Melanie, hey, thank you for doing this. This has been a lot of fun. I
It
enjoyed
has
this.
been. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
If you're enjoying this episode of Just Hike, here's how you can help support the show. First, be sure to follow, download, and share this episode. It helps more adventurers like you and me discover the podcast and helps keep this journey going strong. And if you're gearing up for your next hike or just curious about my favorite outdoor gear, be sure to check out my Amazon affiliate page. I've listed all the items I actually use, from hiking shoes to trail snacks. You'll find them at justhike.com. Every purchase through the link helps support the podcast at no extra cost to you. Thanks again for being here with me on the trail.